Hey, good afternoon and welcome to our first meeting of June. It's hard to believe that it is June. The invocation tonight will be given by Councilman John Roberts, and I will lead us into respects to the flag. Please rise.
Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you tonight thankful for the countless blessings you have bestowed upon us, thankful for our freedom, and thankful to call Anderson our home. We ask for your guidance that the decisions made tonight will be in the best interest of our citizens and community, but most importantly, Father, we pray they will be pleasing to you. As always, please watch over our first responders as they place themselves in harm's way for our protection. Please protect them and keep them safe in your arms. These things I ask in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. That's wonderful.
It's the second time you guys have given special meaning to the pledge of allegiance to the flag. Before we get started, we have a special recognition that we occasionally get to do in regards to our youth and our community. But we're celebrating the state championship for a particular high school here in town. And I guess first of all, I'm going to ask Eric, the coach, to come down and stand beside me. And I'm going to read a proclamation, and we have some honors to give to some of the players, and I'm going to ask some of our council members to participate in that. The proclamation reads, in celebration of T.L. Hanna Boys Golf State Championship. And whereas on behalf of the City of Anderson, it gives us great pleasure to express to the Yellow Jackets our sincere congratulations on winning the South Carolina High School League 5A Boys State Championship. And whereas the Jackets won by 11 shots Tuesday, May 16th over Spartanburg on the Vikings home course, the Carolina Country Club. And whereas the T.L. Hanna varsity boys golf team won the school's first boys golf state championship since 1994 by firing back-to-back days of 2 over par 290. At the close of the event, the Jackets placed all 5 golfers in the top 30 individually. And Bennett Scarletta, who shot 6 under par 66 in the first round, was the medalist with a 2-day total of 136. Jackson Scarletta shot a 70 both days for the silver medal. And Eric, knew I was going to mess this name up. I'm sure everybody does a lot. Erlenkoser, Camden Olsemer, tough names. Kyle Harbin, all shot 75 in the final round to finish among the top 30. And whereas the Jackets finished the season with many accomplishments, Parks Hutto, JV Bingle Invitational Championship, Burns JV Rebel Individual Invitational Championship, and the Gaffney JV Indian Invitational runner-up. And whereas additionally, the Red Raider Invitational runner-up, the Yellow Jacket Invitational Championship, the Pickens Invitational Championship, the TC Easel Invitational Championship, and Region 1 5A Tournament Champions. And whereas the City of Anderson is very proud of players, Coach Eric Bona and his coaching staff for their prestigious achievement, hard work, and commitment. Now, therefore, I, Terrence V. Roberts, along with my fellow City Council members, congratulate the Jackets boys golf team, coaches, the T.L. Hanna School on their successes of their championship, and encourage them to continue their commitment to excellence in the classroom, community, and through athletics. Go Jackets!
take a moment to say thanks to Mayor Roberts here for recognizing us tonight and the accomplishments of all these fine young men, to Councilman Matt Harbin, who has gone above and beyond out of his way to be an assistant coach and to do the things that we needed done so that we could make this possible.
Well, Coach, I have this trophy for you, and I'm gonna let you give one to your coach back here.
Thank you. Deserved so.
And I'm gonna get Councilman Newton come down, and Kyle is representing the school district. We have some gifts for the kids, right? And so, Matthew, call names.
Can they call them, or?
Yeah, you call them.
All right, we have, here with us today, we have Blake Hurd.
Blake, come down.
Jake Watson. Cal Harbin. Landon Smith. Bennett Scaletta. Oh, and our team captain, Jackson Scaletta. The support that we got from our district, from our school, and from our community has just been overwhelming, and it's extremely appreciated. You know, none of this happens without a lot of hands in the fire, going to bat for us and making things possible. And again, we just want to say thank you to everybody involved. Thank y'all for recognizing us tonight. And also, while we're here, thank you to all the veterans in the house tonight. We really appreciate everything y'all have done for our country as well.
The minutes of our May 22nd meeting have been distributed. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Not hearing any, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
First by Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, second by Mr. Newton. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes of May 22nd passed unanimously. We have 3 items of old business on our agenda tonight. We have requested the second reading of ordinance 2304 to rezone 3.5 acres at 196 Woodburn Avenue and adjacent 0.7 acre parcel from R10 single family to NC neighborhood commercial. Mr. McEwen?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This was considered at the May 8th meeting and approved on first reading. There was a few requests for additional information. With that, Mr. Maurice McKenzie will go over the details.
Okay, thank you. As you know, Vets Helping Vets is a nonprofit organization, and they're looking to construct a new facility on the property that we're discussing tonight, a 4,500 square foot meeting facility and associated parking to go along with that. And the building will be used only for their weekly meetings, and the property is currently zoned R10, single-family residential, which does not allow this type of use. So the next use that would allow a community-type center would be neighborhood commercial, NC neighborhood commercial, and this site is fronting along Bleckley Street, which has a higher traffic count. Across the street from Bleckley Street, there is a piece of property zoned neighborhood commercial as well. And then to the east are properties zoned R10 single-family residential. And at the last meeting on May 8th, as the city manager mentioned, you did approve it on first reading, but one thing you asked was for them to submit a site plan, which is in your packets, this plan right here, which is a general site plan showing the lot layout. It shows the building footprint, it shows parking, required green space. It also has a curb cut onto Bleckley Street, which you found to be very important. So you can see all of that on the plan before you. Now, keep in mind, this drawing is not an official plan for submittal, but it is merely to show you the favorable layout for rezoning purposes. Now, if the rezoning is approved, they will need to have a design professional create site plans regarding the site layout, grading, building construction, tree preservation, landscaping, and screening from adjacent residential properties. So again, that's what would happen next if you approve it tonight on second reading. I'll be glad to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you. It did pass unanimously on the first reading with those requests. I guess my first question would be, did we have any public input between the first and the second reading?
No, sir.
Good. I'd open it up to council. Any questions, comments?
I have one.
Ms. Lockridge?
That's in my, my area. I know that you did go check your sources. I did check the neighborhood and asked them what they thought about this going in. They were very happy about it. They were thrilled about veterans being there. So I'm in favor of this happening, so I move that we could go ahead and adopt this change of zoning.
Thank you. I have first by Mr. Lockridge.
Second.
Second by the Mayor Pro Tem. Any further discussion? Mr. Roberts? Jeff?
I have one request, and this is really all about respect for your neighbors, the neighborhood that this will be abutting. And I do agree, 100%, and it is a compatible use. But I ask that you maybe consider a more intensified buffer between the parking and your neighbors to keep headlights from shining into their windows at night, just to give a screening, more intense. I mean, it'll be above and beyond what is required, but I would simply request that you consider that.
Any other comments? Not hearing any. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously on the second and the final reading. We'll move on to the second item of business.
Mr. Mayor, they're welcome to go.
Unless you guys want to stay, we could pause to let you leave the premises. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. authorizing the execution of a contract and deed to convey real estate located at the intersection of North Mary Avenue and West Malden Street. Ms. McEwen?
Okay, South Carolina Department of Transportation is requesting a little bit of land here at this intersection that belongs to the city of Anderson so that they can install new traffic lights. As you've noticed, the traffic lights are on older power telephone type poles, and they'll come in and enhance that significantly, build a foundation, build the poles up, and they'll be a lot more heavy duty than they were. So in this case, it's a second reading. It was passed on first reading. This does not interfere with the Lindley Park project as far as any of our design or anything else. And so we do recommend this to staff to move forward. If you have any questions, Frankie McClain can also answer them as he's helped prepare this real estate deed.
Great, thank you. We had a few comments at our last meeting, but are there any additional comments, questions? Not hearing any, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
First by Mr. Lockridge,
Second.
second by Mr. John Roberts. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously on the second and final reading. The last item of old business is request consideration of an ordinance to rezone 307 Cater Street from LO Limited Office to NC Neighborhood Commercial. Ms. McEwen.
Thank you. This is first reading coming back from the Planning Commission. It was referred from you guys to the Planning Commission, and now it's coming back on first reading. Mr. Maurice McKenzie will go over the details of it.
Okay, thank you. 307 Cater Street has been the site of a restaurant as a primary use for many years. It was a Subway restaurant, but it was considered to be a legal non-conforming use since 1998 because the LO Limited Office zoning classification does not allow restaurants. And per our zoning ordinance, you lose your non-conforming or being grandfathered in status if you vacate the property for a period of 4 consecutive months or more. Well, 2 years ago, in the summer of 2021, the Subway did vacate it, so when that happened, they lost the non-conforming status for that piece of property, so it reverts back to the LO standards. Now, in this situation, the applicant seeks to rezone the property to NC Neighborhood Commercial to establish a new restaurant and bar. And neighborhood commercial zoning is the least intensive zoning classification that allows restaurants in our zoning ordinance. And bars and nightclubs, they fall in the same category as restaurants in our zoning classification. Now, the building has been undergoing some interior renovations over the last few months, and since no building permits were issued, work on that was not discovered until several weeks ago. And based on some observations, it seems apparent that plans should have been submitted by a design professional, or at the very least, a life safety plan showing the floor plan and occupant load, because without that, there are some unknowns. But again, we did not receive any of that to this point. To look at this property and the surrounding properties from a land use perspective, properties along East Greenville Street are primarily zoned neighborhood commercial. It is more of a major arterial, as you know. A couple blocks away on North Main Street, you also see the presence of neighborhood commercial zoning because it's an arterial. When you start looking at Cater Street, you can see on the map that it acts as a boundary between the NC zoning and the LO zoning because it is considered a residential street where less intensive uses exist. And then you have Ella Street, which is considered a minor collector street. The primary zoning along that stretch is also LO Limited Office. And the LO district was designed to be that lower intensity zoning classification that you see abutting residential neighborhoods. And one other zoning classification to point out that you can see on your map is the RM10 zoning classification. That allows the mixed-use residential development that you see in the properties behind the subject property we're talking about. Now, this did go before the Planning Commission last week on June 6th, They recommended approval of the request to rezone it to neighborhood commercial by a vote of 5-1. And their justification basically was saying that the building was not constructed to be office-type uses. It was always a restaurant, and the history of it being a restaurant, again, that was their justification of it, of recommending approval of that. And at the meeting, we did have a couple of neighbors that spoke in opposition of the request. I'll be glad to answer any questions you have, and I think there are also some people in the audience that want to speak both in favor and in opposition.
Great. I'd suggest maybe we, as a council, as this board, maybe hold any questions maybe to Ms. McKenzie if we, as we discuss it. But I think the applicants are here, and maybe we could get you guys to come to, one of you to come to the podium to talk about your business
Good evening.
and how you got here and so forth.
Yes, my name is James Byers, and my business partner, Katrina Carson. We took a lease on the building as commercial restaurant because that's the way it was advertised to us. So we leased the property through McCoy Wright, and we have spent over $80,000 renovating the inside of it. We actually had a couple of neighbors come in the property yesterday. They wanted to see, and when they walked up, they said, "Oh, we thought this was a club." Well, they found out that it was not a club; it's an upscale restaurant. We sent pictures to the neighborhood. The planning and development. They were supposed to submit the pictures to the council members to show the upscale restaurant that we have on the inside. It looks nothing like a Subway anymore. It's very upscale.
We did get the pictures. I think everybody got them. I didn't interrupt. Go ahead.
And the neighbors that live across the street came in the property yesterday, and they asked could they take pictures because they were so shocked of the work that we done inside, and it changed their mind. They said, "Oh, we thought this was a bar or a nightclub." Well, it's not. And we invite anybody to come in to look, to make if they want to see that it is just a restaurant. If Subway was there with no problems, we would be there with no problems. So that's our plan. We know that side of town needs something like that where the older people like myself can go sit down and have a nice dinner. If they want to drink them a cocktail, they can drink them a cocktail. But we are an upscale restaurant.
Thank you. And I think also we, at that meeting, and we might ask you to come back up if we have any questions. Thank you for your input into your business. I think we also might have a neighbor or two, a business owner, who would like to come to the podium and speak, and I would invite anyone up who's here to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members, city leadership. I'm Greg Shore. I am the CEO of MedShore Ambulance Service. I own 14 properties within proximity of this restaurant that's being asked. Across the street, I have a triplex that I rent out. I also have a rental house and garage apartment one block up there at Creighton and Ella Street. And my concern is if they're selling alcohol and they're open late at night, it's going to be a disturbance to my tenants. I'm also concerned about the parking situation there. I think there's less than 12 parking spaces there. And if it's going to be a successful, establishment, I just question where the excess parking will go, because it's certainly going to be dangerous to park on the sides of the streets. Creighton Street and Cater Street are very small, narrow streets, and that's my biggest concern. I have employees that work next door 24/7. That's our dispatch center, and I worry about their safety and security as they come out during different hours of the day and night. We do have security cameras on our campus, but I am concerned. We had a great relationship with Subway. We never had any issues as long as I've been their neighbors. You know, selling alcohol, I just don't know what kind of traffic that's going to change. I'm not in the restaurant business, and I don't know what makes a successful restaurant versus a non-successful restaurant when it comes to serving alcohol. But those are the concerns I have, and you know, I ask that you not grant a zoning change due to them serving alcohol there.
Thank you, Mr. Shore.
My name is Dennis James, and I live at 1015 Ella Street. It's corner of Creighton and Ella. And I'm a little concerned about alcohol consumption and activity after people have done so. I have had 4 wrecks in which my stone wall was damaged from people who start up at East Robert Street and use that exit out toward Greenville Street as a raceway. And some of those cars absolutely I came home, I taught at Anderson University. I came home one night, and there was a car sitting up on my stone wall with the hood pointed at my porch 10 feet away. I've seen people actually come up Creighton Street, and I saw one car absolutely just jump Ella Street, and I don't know how he got stopped before he got down to Fant. But I've seen the activity late at night, and I'm just concerned about the traffic, the parking, and I certainly wouldn't want to see anybody get killed. You know, that's a very real possibility in my mind. So I'd rather have it as green space, you know, and for that reason, I object to the zoning change and ask that you not grant that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. James. Anyone else?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. My name is John Benka. I live at the home at 308 Creighton Street. Quite literally, this is in my backyard. I came and spoke to the Planning Commission on Tuesday night and was sorely disappointed at the outcome. My family and the other families that I've spoken to and my city council representative are opposed to this zoning change for a number of reasons. As a business owner myself, we took it upon ourselves to do things the right way. We went to the Building and Codes Department, said, what do we need to do? We're rookies at this. I was 30. And they were quite helpful in saying, this is the procedure you need to go through. Then I built a design team that included a lawyer, an accountant, a banker, and said, how do I run a business? And how to specifically run a restaurant business. Because there are a number of hoops you need to jump through, and to do it effectively and cheaply, you need to do it right. I think ignoring proper procedure is a real problem for those of us in the business of running restaurants in your city. We pay the hospitality tax, sales tax, income tax, property tax, you know what tax, whatever comes down the pike tax next, try to employ our people, hire them, get them in there, keep them happy, serve the public, go home at night and do it again tomorrow. It's a thankless grind on the one hand, so you might ask me, why do I keep doing it? We moved to the house on Creighton Street in 1998 after opening in 1996. I think we run a successful business, but this is not about me. This is about what I've seen change in our neighborhood over the last 20 some odd years. When most of my neighbors were either retired, elderly, senior citizens, that demographic and composition has changed, not just on my street, but on Cater Street, Robert Street, Highland, Broad, all the way up. So I think it's one of the nicest pocket neighborhoods the city has, and the closest in proximity to downtown and its many amenities. I chose to put my business in the business district that I knew was going to develop into an entertainment district, and to your credit, that's exactly what we have today. And that's where a business like this belongs. People have moved in and bought those properties, invested in those properties, increased the value of that neighborhood over 18% in the last 5 years since the last reassessment, are owed a little bit more consideration than just passing this off. The taxes generated from those properties alone in 2 blocks, from Cater Street to Robert Street and from Fant Street over, are over $15,000, just the city's portion of that. The overall property value is at $4.8 million. This property on Cater Street at 307 represents about 3.7% of that. If you want to listen to your constituents and protect, which I think this zoning classification was designed to do, a quality of life that attracts families into our city with their children to enjoy the amenities that business people have brought into your downtown business district, that I think it's quite clear you need to reject this. I think it's an unfortunate circumstance that somebody went outside the scope of your ordinance to go start work on a property in the middle of the night and skirt these things. Not only that, I think the other safety concerns and all have been addressed by some of my neighbors. But I've seen people take daily walks with strollers and dogs from our neighborhood into downtown and back again. The offices in the neighborhood commercial right now are very complimentary in their business hours and the type of business services that they offer to create a nice, harmonious situation. Subway was a very transient restaurant business that did not serve alcohol. Basically, you came in, you got a sandwich, you didn't lounge around, you left. You went back to work, you did your thing, and then they closed at a reasonable hour. It never presented a problem to anybody in our neighborhood, to the best of my knowledge. But the grandfathering issue has reverted that back to limited office, which is where we believe it's supposed to be. To say I didn't know that, or I was unaware of that, and you didn't do your due diligence, or you didn't have proper representation from your lawyer or your real estate agent, falls on squarely in somebody's lap. They need to take responsibility for that. That's not your fault. You can go to the city's website and within 3 clicks find the zoning map very easily and very easily accessible to anybody. It's not a secret what something's zoned. That's just lazy on the part of the broker, in my opinion. Having said that, marketing it as suitable for any restaurant is just false and unfair to the client. While I can sympathize with the investment spent thus far, what about our investment and our neighbors that we've made in our properties to revitalize this neighborhood and bring it back to an attractive state? And not every home, mind you, but we're getting there. What about the risk of the safety to our children from increased traffic and alcohol consumption and driving late at night? What about the families with children trying to sleep when the bar around the corner is open past midnight? We're concerned about the lack of concern on the part of the Planning Commission to understand these issues, undermine our quality of life in the name of development your ordinance strictly prohibits. And should this be approved by council, it'll be a clear signal and disregard for the opinions of homeowners and property owners when there are plenty of other vacant properties throughout the city of Anderson and close to this location with better parking options, better traffic options, and zoning already in place. My wife and I wish she could be here, but she's babysitting. Respectfully, I ask you and urge you to reject this rezoning application. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Binko. Is there anybody else in opposition?
Not in opposition. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, City Council, for affording this opportunity to speak. My name is Demetrius Carson, and I am from the city of Anderson. It's quite clear that the Zoning Commission did approve this project after hearing grievances from the neighborhood. The question you gentlemen have today, and I thank you for being the gentleman that will have to address the question, is will there be an opportunity for a citizen of Anderson to live out a dream, to open a restaurant, to make a place where the city citizens can come and wind down and relax. We speak of nuisance and troubles and issues. This is not that type of establishment. There are several establishments around Anderson, and we have a great city police department that handles almost any issue that can come around. But the question is it equitable and is it fair to allow these people to occupy a building that the zoning commission has already approved? It's just a simple question. The zoning commission job is to see if it is, or if it's possible, to inhabit such a building for whatever use there is. If that use has been granted, and there has been no issues, we're speaking of possibilities, maybes, and likelihoods. The fact is, no one knows what will happen. No one has seen what will happen. Their plan is to open up a restaurant to serve the citizens of Anderson, and also to bring Anderson City revenue through tax revenue. This is a great opportunity for citizens of Anderson, for a young lady that grew up as a product of Anderson, to live out a dream. The city of Anderson has always been a place where you can start business. I started my business at 26 years old here in the city of Anderson. I'm 50 years old now. And it's been a great place for me, and it's a great place for a lot of us citizens here. Very proud to call it home. Very proud of what the city has done to encourage businesses here, to also look out for the safety and the security of the citizens. With the safety and security in mind, and business productivity, growth, and revenue for the city, and the zoning commission having already said it is okay, there's only one question. Did the zoning commission say that it's possible? And nothing has happened in that area due to this young lady and this young man opening a business. If we speak of nuisances and sounds, there's several businesses and there's already sounds and noises, but they're running a restaurant. They're running a restaurant. You can say what you think it'll be, what you want it to be, what you don't want it to be, but they're running a restaurant, and that's what it is, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Carson. Yes, sir.
I was going to speak in opposition to the project. My name is Michael Kelly. I'm a resident of 207 Cater Street. I've lived there for just over 15 years now. I found out about this project from my councilman, Tony Stewart, Saturday before last. He was coming through the neighborhood and letting us know what was happening in the old Subway location. I attended the Planning Commission meeting last Tuesday to voice my concern with this project moving forward. One of the things that kind of stuck with me from last Tuesday, the Planning Commission asked multiple times for the business owner to provide some kind of comparable business, whether it be here locally, Atlanta, Charlotte. They failed to do that. Multiple times they were asked and they could not give a comparable business. The business owner told the Planning Commission that he planned having no more than 50 to 75 patrons in his establishment at a time. The current parking lot at most is capable of holding maybe 15 vehicles. I feel like that's a concern. One of the business owners on social media has posted over 30 videos which failed to show anything other than liquor, wine, hookah, and a DJ. There's not the first mention of food on social media. The only written descriptions on social media indicate that this is a place to come and wind down and a place for the grown and sexy to step. The property was misrepresented to the business owners as suitable for a restaurant, and that's a shame, but it shouldn't fall on the residents of the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Any other comments? I'll turn it back over to us. We have Mr. McKenzie came up and gave a explanation of the 1998 zoning ordinance revision. And we're all very familiar with limited office and neighborhood commercial. And so I would open it up for any other questions that council members. Mr. Lockridge.
Mr. McKenzie, you can stand. You mentioned something when you were giving your presentation about the lowest intensity. You were talking about not neighborhood commercial at the time, I think. Explain what lower intensity is for the folks that are listening on TV.
Sure. We were looking at the zoning change to neighborhood commercial, which allows a certain list of retail uses, a larger list of uses than you would see in limited office. Neighborhood commercial, it's not in front of me right now, but it allows retail uses, it allows restaurants, things of that nature. Limited office basically allows office-type uses, your smaller scale uses. We have one other zoning classification in our zoning ordinance that's even less intensive than limited office. That's neighborhood professional, and that allows offices as well, but on a lesser scale than limited office. But again, this property is limited office. The request is for neighborhood commercial. So when you make a change like that, you see more of a retail element in it, if that answers your question.
That does. I've got one other question.
Yes.
They said that they were going to, according to the gentleman up here, and I suppose this is true, 50 to 75 people will be in your restaurant? Will there be 50 to 75 people per in your restaurant?
No, sir. We counted the parking spaces, and we have 21 parking spaces. Very seldom do one person occupy a vehicle by themselves when they come to a restaurant, but we will work off reservations. If we get to our limited space.
I saw this on the planning. You said 50 to 75 on the planning.
They asked me what I thought the capacity was. I said, I don't know for sure, but I guess the fire marshal would have to come out and tell how many people the place can hold. But like I said, we're an upscale restaurant, and we will work off reservations. You have to have a reservation to come into our establishment.
Thank you. Any other questions? Comments? Mr. Roberts, Jeff?
Here are a few of my thoughts. This is an already non-compliant zoning, and the applicant is asking to go in the direction of a more non-compliant zoning. So I do have a problem with that. And as the vets were here just a few minutes ago, I asked them to respect their neighbors. Light shining into the neighbors' houses, that was the thing that I brought up, because their parking was so close to the houses. And I really can't think of a more benign restaurant than a Subway. And I'm not sure that the proposed use is so benign. And I think it breaches that transition from commercial to residential. And I think that's my biggest problem.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I think, Mayor, a couple of things here as well. I personally know one of the applicants, and I know her character, and I have no reason to doubt her. I've known her since high school. I also know applicants sitting across the aisle that are opposed to, and one thing that I can talk about, even if you sign something saying it was going to be guaranteed, we're closing here, it's going to have reservations only, X number of seats, occupants. At the end of the day, we still have to look at things. If you turn over, that is now neighborhood commercial. In the last case, Mr. Roberts mentioned that the neighborhood was in favor of it. There was parking. There were reasons to look at that classification. In this case, we're going to be looking the neighborhoods against. We're having to listen to the citizens. That's what we do. We have a parking issue. We're going to be parking. So things start going against it, and we can't control what would be next. It could be a nightclub. It could be, there's plenty of uses of car dealership, lots of things that it could be that we cannot control once it's turned over. And I think the unfortunate thing is how much has been invested at this point, and we're at this problem, or at this stopping point. I think there's a lot of things that have popped up along the way. But we're not here to hold back anyone's dream to move forward. We want people to be entrepreneurial and move forward. And, we don't want to see anyone lose, especially someone I know. Definitely don't want to see them lose a thing. But I think this is one of those tough situations where, in my opinion, we're crossing into the neighborhood, and we've got to draw a line somewhere, and it's, you know, what is that future use? How could it be? It may be the same thing forever, 20 people, non-impactful, doesn't matter, but we have to plan for the future. And it's just, it's, you know, kind of, it's more than a gray area, I believe, at this point.
Thank you. Anything else?
Mayor.
Mr. Horvath?
So, Mr. McKenzie, when it reverted back, I know when the zoning was changed and it went to the planning commission for trying to get the zoning changed with the planning commission, when the overlay district was put in, I guess in '98, there were, you know, it seems like through the years, there's been a few different ones that were non-conforming that came up. And in some instances, we changed the zoning to meet the need of the kind of business that it is or was, and then other times it's reverted back. The reasoning for the overlay district, I think I'm using the proper term, whenever they looked at the maps, was to buffer the commercial to the residential areas, right?
That's correct.
And so it would identify, and that's when it became non-conforming.
That's correct. When the zoning ordinance was created in 1998, much like we're going through the same process now in 2023, you look at a general area and look at the abutting land uses to see how compatible they are.
And when did Subway go out of business?
According to our records, July of 2021.
So they would have had July, August, September, October to that 4 months is the time frame to say, hey, you know, we're non-conforming, we need to get it fixed or get another restaurant in there or something.
That's right.
And then, so 2 years later, a couple of years go by and it sits vacant, and these people came and leased it, even though it was advertised as commercial, it was not.
Correct. It was zone limited office.
Yeah. And no permits were pulled for the project?
No, sir.
Okay. Would that have thrown up a red flag with you if they had pulled a permit to open a restaurant?
If someone had come to the city and asked about the permitting, one of the first things we do is check the zoning classification. So to answer your question, yes.
Okay. So with that, Mayor, I'd make a motion that we do not pass this.
We have a first by Mr. Harvin,
Second.
second by Mr. Lockridge. Any further discussion? You know, I would say in discussion, in my more than 2 decades of being on council, this council has changed, but the council has always made a strong and been a strong advocate for our neighbors. And to Mr. Jeff Roberts' point today, doing the first and second reading of the neighborhood request by veterans, we had no comments from the neighbors. I think the other thing that I've seen happen over the years when zoning or any type of change has occurred, applicants have made a really successful applicants have made a really vested effort of going and walking the neighborhood and talking to people in the neighborhood about what they're doing. And I think that's how you get a feel for it. And I think the other one has been communications, and we've talked a lot about communications and whether that communication came from the property owner or the broker at large. But I think all that communication to the Mayor Pro Tem's point, starts with a conversation with City Hall. We have a lot of processes in place. So we had a first, we had a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously, the denial of this request. We'll move on to our next item. We have 7 items of new business, and that first item is request consideration of a referral to the Planning Commission, a petition to annex and zone to R15 single-family residential, approximately 8.3 acres located at 3238 Midway Road. Ms. McEwen.
Mayor, as you're aware, we've strategically grown in this particular area. The map is attached. You can see shaded in blue the overlay here of the GIS map of where we have grown to. Of course, we're seeing single-family development in this area. We've always been working close with this church in particular with traffic flow, as we do have traffic enhancements on the way. Midway Presbyterian Church did approach the city to annex their property to receive city services. There also was some conversation that we'll follow up on regarding some of the amenities that they have on site, including the tennis courts, basketball court, that kind of thing, where we may be able to do some type of partnership that could be inclusive into the single-family neighborhood around that. With that, though, this is a referral to the Planning Commission with the petitioner, Midway Presbyterian Church, requesting to annex into the city. It's
Thank you,
recommended
sir.
by staff.
Just starts the process. Any question before we move into the Planning Commission? I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
I have first by Mr. Lockridge, second by Mr. John Roberts. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously, going to the Planning Commission. A second item of new business is request consideration of an ordinance adopting the budget for the fiscal year 2023 through 2024. Ms. McEwen.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. First, want to thank our city administration, our finance team, Chief Financial Officer Margaret Martin on this, her entire finance team, some of which are here today, and Ms. Martin can recognize in just a moment. We'd like to say that we do have a very sophisticated planning process. The budget is a piece of that. It's a piece of our strategic plan. It's a piece of our strategic capital planning that we do. Ultimately, it is the 12-month spending plan for the city. However, as you know, we have a 5-year plan that we follow. This is a piece of that, so that when you get to the 13th month, we know what we're doing. It's not just starting all over. It's on the 13th month that we strategically are moving forward with how we're being wise with the taxpayers' money and utilizing it in the best use to provide city services, from public safety to recreation, across the board, and transit, and also includes also our electric city utilities budget, which operates as an enterprise budget, so that's included as well. We are seeing great growth, good growth in our area. The entire upstate area in the southeast is experiencing that. Due to that growth, we are able to successfully balance the budget while absorbing inflationary costs and also investing in capital resources, both capital equipment, capital facilities, and also into our most important asset, our people, the people that serve the city of Anderson 24/7 on the front lines, and we're able to do that as well with no tax increase and no other increases. With that, again, this is a first reading. We did have a public hearing earlier today. We did not have any comments from the public. We've had multiple work sessions on this, and also this has been connected to, of course, our strategic plan, capital planning. Ms. Margaret Martin will go over the remaining details.
Thank you, David. David did a great job with my budget presentation. Thank you. I would like to point out our finance team. I have Tamara Lilly, our Assistant Finance Director, Reagan Phillips, who I don't know if y'all have met, is our new staff accountant, and then Elizabeth Willett is our financial grants manager, does transit and things like that. So we all worked on the budget and still working on our budget document that we win our award for every year. That's been Reagan's new project this year. But we are requesting consideration of an ordinance adopting the budget for the fiscal year 23-24. And in accordance with the general statutes of the state of South Carolina, the City Council is required to adopt an annual balanced budget by ordinance prior to July 1. And the city's budget is part of our policy and planning documents that describe our priorities and plans. And the purpose of this budget is to control the money, direct funds at any projects identified by council, and provide the municipal services that David has described earlier. This budget does not include any tax increases or reduction in service for our citizens. The millage rate remains at 109. We rolled back last year from 116, working with John over here to do that, and there are no utility rate increases this year. We did have 2 work sessions with council, May 8th and May 22nd, where we presented the highlights, overview, and then we also provided you with a fun, detailed budget book, line-by-line items. As David mentioned, we did have a public hearing. We had 9 staff members attend the public hearing tonight at 5, and just did a real quick highlight overview as no one else from the public did attend. Some of the highlights, just to remind you, is we are saving in workers' comp premiums $219,000. We do have $250,000 included for this year for housing demolition. We have $560,000 included for capital replacement of rolling stock equipment. The hospitality budget includes $3.2 million of cash-funded capital projects, including Caters Lake and Lindley Park. And we have a 3.25% cost of living for our employees and an increase of our Christmas bonus to $500 for our full-time employees. There are no health insurance increases for our employees, though the city did incur a 3.7% increase effective January of 24. This budget also includes 3 additional full-time firemen, 2 part-time firemen, and 2 full-time new sanitation employees. So we are requesting first reading of Ordinance 2307, adopting the budget for the year ending June 30, 2024, for a total of $82,842,152.
Thank you. We did have 2 detailed work sessions, and as always, we appreciate the work that Ms. Martin's department does, not only with finance, but coordinating the budget requests from other divisions throughout the enterprise. And I know we had a public hearing today at 5, but I would ask if anybody in the public would like to make a comment before we turn it over to our discussion.
Mr. Mayor, council members, I just want to salute the fire department and the police department in the work that they do, keeping our community safe. They have partnered with MedSure and our EMS system for many years, and we have one of the greatest public safety systems in Anderson County and the city of Anderson. And it's because of the cooperation of those 2 departments that really stand out. And Anderson County EMS, ANMED, and MedSure received a state award for System of the Year, but the fire department, the police department are part of that award. So if you'll just send my congratulations of the work that they do to support us, and I just want the council to know that they are doing a wonderful job.
Thank you, Mr. Shore. Any other comments? Any comments of council, observations? Mr. Martinez?
Yeah, Mayor. First of all, I do want to applaud the city and the finance team specifically. This is a very comprehensive budget. There's a lot of layers in this, and it's no easy task for anyone that's involved. Even a banker like myself can get cross-eyed looking at a document like this and seeing all the different items that we have to discuss. I'm very proud of the trajectory of the city of Anderson. It's evident just based on the budget size. There's a lot of moving pieces to make this city work and operate as efficiently as possible. I think the leadership is outstanding. I think the cooperation amongst the council has been has been evident. One of the questions I've received and some inquiries in the last week has just been around our trajectory around mobility and trails. I want to be outspoken in saying that it is at least my voice and it is my interpretation that this council is very friendly towards recreation and the future of Anderson and how that's all going to connect together. I do believe that maybe it was not noted as a line item in the budget for transportation, or not transportation, but mobility in general. But I do not think that directly reflects our feelings and thoughts to where we think this is going to go. We have several capital projects that will address connectivity, but I think as other things continue to develop in the city, and maybe in the outskirts of the city, that we need to be in the ready position from a mobility standpoint to act on it when those opportunities come. So I just wanted to make that statement.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments? Mr. Harvey?
You know, seeing that number of 82 million, right at 83 million, it's sort of surprising how much in my short tenure the city has actually grown. And, you know, the two things that I am so happy about are the 3.25% for our employees, because that's our biggest asset, and also the city stepping up and incurring the 3.7% health insurance premiums. You know, I hope the employees realize, and I know they will, that's a 6.95% raise. I know employees don't see, as business owners, don't see it that way, but it sort of really is, because they didn't have to step up and come out of their paycheck. And I think this sort of starts from the top, from our city manager's team, all the way down to Margot's Department of Finance. They do a fantastic job in getting the figures in front of us. And with that, I'd make a motion that we approve this.
First by Mr. Harvey.
Second.
Second by Mr. Martinez. Any further discussion? It is a big budget, and it has grown. I think one of the advantages that we have is we have a city that is in the upstate of South Carolina, one of the busiest corridors in the country, the third largest megazone in the country, and that's important. And so we've been able to maintain momentum, increase services based on those factors. I would like to say we're going forever. We need to be careful as council members to make sure that we don't necessarily depend on our location and stay ahead of that. So, but overall, we're in a good spot. We have a lot of good partners throughout the community, legacy institutions, the hospital is such an important factor, Anderson University, our school district. And so we had a first and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously on the first reading.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Our third item is request consideration of an ordinance authorizing the execution of easements to Duke Energy Carolinas LLC across city property at 314 Tribble Street and 301 I Street. Ms. McEwen.
We received two requests from Duke Energy Carolinas for different right-of-way to upgrade their system. Mr. McLean has been working with Duke Energy Carolina and has prepared this real estate document for you. Mr. McLean?
Yeah, this is just a request from Duke. They're upgrading their transmission and distribution systems, and this is property we own on Tribble Street, which is close to our, what's that?
The water operations office.
Water operations. And the other one is just a lot that we own on I Street, and I don't know why we own it, but anyway. But it's just one of those lots that we own that they're improving, or doing improvements to their system, and they need an easement to install new poles and stuff like that.
I understand. Any comments, questions? Mr. Roberts, Jeff Roberts?
Just one question. Would this inhibit any future use that we have in mind for the Greenway?
It
Or
should
any
not.
redevelopment in
Yeah.
that area?
It shouldn't inhibit that, no.
I don't think it was included in your packet, but I have a detailed engineering document of what they're doing.
It's just along the edge of
So Triple Street, yeah, basically just, they have that, that was Duke Energy property that we bought with the water system. So you have that substation there that has some high voltage coming into it. So they're looking to replace a couple poles across the street, one on our property. They need to add a new pole on our property, which is just next to the substation, and our drive that comes in beside the substation. And then a majority of the work is on the other side of Triple Street, which is, adjacent to the railroad, right there. And what the notes here that they have on the engineering plan are certainly enhancing the reliability of the system, and it does not get in our way or prohibit the use of our property or the future use or redevelopment of the property. And the same with I Street, it was just simply a pole that needed to be slightly moved into that lot.
Replacing an existing pole?
Yes.
Okay.
Like most easements, we couldn't build a structure over it, but, we can use it, I think, for, even if we had.
Right, but I know we have plans for, potentially the Greenway coming through there, and who knows what may happen with that as that redevelops in that area.
Correct, and there's so much right there anyways, particularly at the substation. This might help it, and maybe they have some outdated lines there, so that might help as well to kind of remove those as they work on this further to enhance. But it certainly doesn't get in our way.
Mayor, I move we execute the easement with Duke.
We have a first by Mr. Jeff Roberts, second by Mr. John Roberts. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. A fourth item of new business is request consideration of a contract with engineering, design, and construction management services for the Hammond Acres Pond dredging project. Ms. McEwen?
Okay, on these next two items, as you're aware, we have ARPA funds available that council chose to allocate. I mean, it was towards the infrastructure, of course, particularly water, sewer, and stormwater. We were greatly underfunded in stormwater, so this has been a good opportunity for us to catch up on the long list that we have, and we have been significantly catching up. The ARPA funds have been really outstanding for the stormwater fund, and so that's really good. These next two projects are a part of that, and using the federal ARPA funds that we received. And with that, Lucretia will present both of these items. Our city engineer, Lucretia.
Thank you, Mr. McEwen. Mayor and council, the request we're bringing to you today is for an engineering contract that will cover design, permitting, and construction management services for the dredging of the Hammond Acres Road Pond. Earlier this year, we completed a project which replaced approximately 600 feet of failed corrugated metal pipe, which discharged into this pond. Due to the failure of the pipe, and sinkholes that resulted from that, large amounts of sediment entered the pond, and it is no longer the depth that it was originally. Actually, there are spots of it that you can walk across now. So the city is requesting a contract with Seaman Whiteside to provide design and permitting and construction management services to determine the pond's original depth and restore it to that depth. As Mr. McEwen said, the funding will be from our ARPA allocation, and we're requesting the approval of a contract with Seaman Whiteside in the amount not to exceed $87,580.
Thank you. Questions, comments?
Mayor, this resides in my council seat, so I'd like to make the motion we approve the recommendation.
First by Mr. Newton.
Second.
Second by Mr. Martinez. Any further discussion?
Couple of questions.
Mr. Roberts?
Is there a time limit to expend the ARPA funds?
They have to be committed by the end of 2024 and spent by the end of 2026. I get that right? Okay. And
also-
on our contractors, we made everyone very aware of that up front,
That'll be here before you know it.
that it will be here before we know it.
And just, I want to reiterate something that everybody should know, that our stormwater department is severely underfunded, and this wouldn't be possible without those ARPA funds. And we're grateful to have them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Federal dollars are always appreciated dollars. Had a first and second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. Our fifth item is request consideration of a contract for engineering design services for Lafayette White Street Stream Bank restoration. Mr. McEwen?
This is one, again, it's been on our list for a long time, and we couldn't get around to funding it. And again, with the American Rescue Plan Act funds, allows us to work down our list and get to this. This is an area, stream bank area, that is threatening to residential property, and also is preventing proper flow of this stormwater area. Lucretia will go over some of the details of the plan here.
As you all may remember, in 2020, we did several stormwater studies, and this project was one of them. Davison Floyd created a preliminary engineering study just to analyze. We've had long-standing erosion issues along that creek. Councilman Stewart has gotten lots of complaints about that. So we have, thanks to the ARPA funds, we are able to move forward with this project, and we are proposing a contract with KCI Engineering. They will provide design, permitting, bidding services, construction management, and Davison Floyd had presented 3 options to us, and we are going mostly with the third option, the stream bank restoration. So that we really wanted to get somebody who was more specialized in that area. It's as much art as it is science. So that is one we have chosen, KCI. They are on our on-call list, so we're going with them. And we are requesting the approval of a contract with KCI Engineering in the amount not to exceed $90,000.
Thank you, ma'am. As Mr. Roberts and Ms. McEwen said, we have a long list of projects, and this one goes back a decade ago or more. I can remember talking about it. So I'm appreciative of the fact that we have the use of these dollars, and I'd open it up for any questions of council.
Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Harvey?
Does this run near the nursing facility?
Yes.
Downstream of it, yes.
It's a little downstream.
Downstream.
So once the creek crosses White Street,
Okay.
it goes between those houses, and for probably halfway down to Moore Street, it is, it's this nice rock wall built structure. It's in great shape, and then it ends and the problems start. And they're really exacerbated by where Moore Street comes from. Moore Street's been closed for, I don't know how long, but a long time. That culvert through on Moore Street is really undersized, so when the water gets there, it's got to squeeze down, which means it speeds up. And there's a house there on the corner with a pool, and I don't know how the pool is still there, but it is. So, and since that road is abandoned, we're proposing with DOT to just remove it from the system and remove the crossing altogether, and then they'll be able to do some restoration in that area, and it should improve things dramatically.
So no work was done upstream from it?
No.
So it's always been down from White Street? Yeah. I make a motion that we approve this. I remember looking at it, and I'm embarrassed to say I thought we'd already done it.
Yep, it's just been in the pipeline.
I'm sort
Yep.
of embarrassed to say that, because I remember looking at how it didn't look good. When we
Yep.
saw the videos and pictures of it.
So we have a first by the Mayor Pro Tem,
Second.
second by Mr. Lockridge. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. The next item, the sixth item, is request consideration of a contract for water line replacement projects on North Street. Ms. McEwen?
Okay, this is good news. North Street, for a long time I've been hearing, for quite some time, that it needs to be repaved, and it does. But we finally have been contacted by SCDOT. It is a state maintained road that is in great need of repaving, and so that they do plan on repaving it. They do have it on current contract with the goal of paving it in August. However, upon us finding out that they're repaving it, we knew this is always a good opportunity to get it in there, replace the sewer line and the water lines. And then that also helps us, well, one, so you don't have the new road and then you're cutting into it later to repair this on the deep down. And also it helps us very much on our cost because we're not having to repave the road and fill the base back up, then do the subgrade, and then also then repave the road after we do the capital construction work here. So with that, both of these items are regarding that, and Utility Director Scott Banks will make the request for both of these items.
Good evening. As Mr. McEwen said, we recently found out that DOT is going to pave North Street. The water line on that portion of North Street from East Orr to North Gossett is galvanized, and we've had frequent leaks, and it's beyond its useful life. With DOT wanting to pave the street, we felt it was prudent to go ahead and obtain quotes to have the line replaced. And by replacing the line now, as Mr. McEwen mentioned, we won't have the added expense of repaving it once we replace the line. So we solicited bids from 4 contractors and received bids from 3 of those. Davis Plumbing and Sewage was the apparent low bidder at a price of $157,086.60. We also received bids from Stone Grading of Star, Capital Construction of Spartanburg, and we received a no bid from JM Construction of Pendleton. And as we mentioned earlier, by performing the work now, we eliminate the cost of having to repave the road, and we'll also extend the line down to North Gossett, eliminating a dead end that it currently has. Funding would be from the water budget, and staff recommends the approval of the bid from Davis Plumbing and Sewage of Iowa in the amount of $157,086.60.
Thank you, Mr. Banks. It's Ms. McCurran said it's always good to know that there's a payment project from DOT, so that is great news. But I thank you for being proactive in regards to all of that, but I'll turn that over to Council. Mr. John Roberts.
Yeah, I'm all for this, so I don't mind going ahead and making a motion first. But a couple of questions. So North Street's slated to be repaved, and this is really for administration. You know, there's been a lot of talk about North Street. Mr. Strickland actually lives on it and can testify to it. And Mr. Roberts, you've seen it, and I used to live there. North Street's been a problem with traffic. We know it is. And if the state's going to be paving, it's now a good time. I think I'd rather, if we can get ahead of it instead of in the rears, is there something we can do to talk about either speed and or, I know there were some things near the hospital, some old proposals that got pushed away many, many years ago, but I'd hate to see something happen and then we do nothing for another 15 or 20 years, or something gets torn up as soon as it's done. So I just want to bring that comment up.
I can respond to that. Recently, we had an internal meeting to discuss traffic calming and different measures and what's worked across cities. The technology's been changing, of course. There's several things out there that that I challenge our staff to look at to implement. Obviously, as you said, it can become a runway really quick with a very smooth asphalt. It was almost slowing it down with the interventions there. And so with that, though, there is different things. You starting to see a little bit more of them around, even on some state streets and out in the county. But it will tell you your actual speed, and it's posted and it's permanent. And to me, that's kind of like you're on the lake and it says no wake zone. The majority of the people will, when they're aware of that, abide by that. Now you have every now and then somebody's just going to blow through it. Sometimes they get caught. However, it's very effective. And then there's some other methods as well that we can do. We would just have to work closer with DOT. But having this is your actual speed, and having that permanent, so it'd be a permanent pole, I think would be effective in multiple areas of North Street, both directions. The other thing too would be considering of that now they make them. It used to be permanent that you had to put in and this kind of been it's a bad word to the state, but speed humps. But now they make them rubberized where you can just bolt them down. They're quieter and everything like that. It's something that I've challenged our staff to start exploring. Some traffic calming. And getting into these neighborhoods. It's worked around some of our regional cities pretty well. And so with that, we're working on exploring some of those options.
You know, one time early on, there was talk of making, cutting it a cul-de-sac, or if you turn off, what's the name of the road that we just shut one down, or we didn't, but AU just closed one. That cut through Summit Avenue. If you would go north on North Street, but that would just dead end at the last residential house. But the hospital would be able to dead end moving south at Gold Line Road or Gold Standard Road. So I don't know how people feel about that still, the residents would or anything, but just something to take a look at.
I think, and all good points, I do think that the technology has changed in regards to speed bumps. I've noticed in Greenville here recently, I was going somewhere toward the west end, and but they have the plastic. Well, they're not plastic, but
it's like a rubber material.
More of
that
a
you bolt
rubber
down.
material that causes people, and I do think the technology has gotten a little bit better where we can not only implement it on North Street, we have, several streets within our community.
Can I
Yes,
say
sir.
something? We have a serious problem in several places, but we years ago, I talked to John Moore about this, and he said that the state would not allow speed bumps to be put on roads.
They still take that
Hasn't changed.
position. They still take that position. However, there are sessions here and there. One was made obviously for Anderson University, but that was kind of an extreme situation with the dormitories across the road, and you have an elevated crossing there. You're on the U.S. highway, such as coming through Lindley Park. They're going to push back on that. However, we're working on some other things with the Lindley Park design there that will help with traffic calming within the design of the park, and we're working closely with DOT. It's actually approved to do that. But getting into some of these long stretches of roads that people clearly use for cut through. Another one would be like James Street. That's used from Concord Road. I use it every day to cut through to Lindley Park or Murray Avenue there and go. But start looking at some of those areas.
Boundary Street is another one where you cut through there.
Let me also add too, we've had several discussions with DOT over the last few years, specifically about North Street, to address some of those issues that you pointed out, Councilman Roberts. But the thing that they've reiterated over and over again is the maintenance money and the design money are two separate pots. And so, anytime a road gets repaved, that's a maintenance pot. And North Street has taken so long to get paved. I've only had to deal with it for 4 years. Lots of you guys had to deal with it your whole lives. But it's you'd hate to lose the opportunity to pave it while they have the money. Now, they have promised us that they will sit down and chat about some of these design changes. That tone has changed a lot over the last couple of years, which, I applaud SCDOT for that. So, like David mentioned, hinted at, more to come for sure on some of these neighborhood streets like this.
Good. We have the first,
I've got one more.
we can discuss, we do have, I want to recognize John's first. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, by the Mayor Pro Tem. Further discussion?
To get back to what we're voting on here is a 2-inch conduit that goes down through there.
Yes, sir.
2-inch pipe. You said it's galvanized right now, so I'm sure it's closing in.
Yes, sir.
Is 2 inches enough to handle all the folks that are on that street?
It is, especially since we're going to tie it. Right now, it dead ends on that street. And normally, I would have recommended we increase the size, but due to the time constraints, we would have to stay the same. Otherwise, we would have to go through permitting process with DHEC and the engineering design and all, and we wouldn't make the time frame. But I feel confident, like I said, especially if we tie it in and remove the dead end, that we have sufficient flow.
And just additional comment on that too. In the area though, there are 6-inch, 10-inch lines and so forth, even a 16-inch line. So you're tying into significantly large lines that provide plenty of
Increase the pressure.
volume and pressure for it. So it's basically just acting as a small vein to those services directly, but it has access to plenty of water.
Well, I know galvanized is bad about closing in, so we probably got some places in the pipe that's half an inch of water going through it.
Ms. Holder?
Real quick, Davis Plumbing and Sewage, are we familiar with them, and have they done any work in the city?
Yes, sir. They've done quite a few projects for us, both on sewer and water.
And you're comfortable with them?
Yes, sir.
Great. We had a first and a second. We had discussion. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. We have one more item of new business, and that item is request consideration of a contract for a sewer line replacement on North Street. It's Mr. Banks, you're up again. Do you want to say something, Mr. McEwen?
No, yeah, yield to Mr. Banks.
Yes, sir. Similar to the water line, the sewer line is a vitrified clay line, which has been a source of groundwater infiltration and inflow. And again, to take advantage of the fact to trying to get in there before DOT paves it, we're recommending that we replace that line. And to do that, we solicited bids from 6 contractors. We received bids from 3 of those 6. The apparent low bidder for this project, again, was Davis Plumbing and Sewage of Iowa, with a price of $677,577.60. We also received bids from Capital Construction of Spartanburg, Roper Brothers of Fountain Inn, and although we solicited bids from them, we did not receive bids from Stone Grading of Star, Moorhead Construction of Belton, or J&M Construction of Pendleton. As this project would be funded through the sewer budget, and staff is recommending approval of the bid from Davis Plumbing and Sewage in the price of $677,577.60.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? Mr. Roberts, Sheriff Roberts?
Well, both of these projects are in the seat that I serve, and I'm glad to see it. Long overdue. And I appreciate you guys recognizing that these need to be done prior to repaving it. And I travel that road probably daily, and you have to dodge the ruts where the sewer line is caving and so on. And I assume that the sewer work is going to be a little more lengthy, not only lengthwise, but length in time.
Yes, sir. We've talked with the contractor, and he's assured us that if we give the go-ahead, he can be ahead of DOT. And we're also talking with DOT and trying to coordinate and make sure that we can meet those deadlines. And in the contract, we've actually got, talking about the depressions, we've actually got some funds for testing to make sure it's compacted so that it doesn't sink
once we get new pavement on top of it.
Yeah, and how fortunate we have the same contractor for both water and sewer. Otherwise, it could have been, you may not have met that deadline.
Well, fortunately, they won't be getting in the way of each other.
Right, yeah.
That's a good way of looking at it.
So I would move that we accept this bid from Davis Plumbing and Sewage.
Got it first by Mr. Roberts, second by Mr. Martinez. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Administrative briefing, the EJI marker. And I guess I'll start the conversation on this one, and David might want to jump in. You know, this council, in your packet, you do see that we signed a resolution. When, David?
It was
21?
2021.
Yeah.
June 2021.
Yep, and so we signed a resolution, and at that time, if memory serves me right, the county signed a resolution, we signed a resolution in regards to the 5 victims of racial lynching between 1894 and 1911. I think the hospital signed that resolution, Anderson University signed that resolution. Since 21, and I've been involved in this, and this again was to just start a dialogue in regards to our past, and not pointing fingers, but just talking about fellowship and how that prevails among all races. But what I am proud to say is for every 2 or 3 steps back, we went forward. More momentum in regards to, and I think one of the biggest things is that Duke Energy funded an art piece by Herman Keith, and Herman Keith has done a lot of work. He did the mural downtown, and it was hosted at Welfare Baptist Church. A group in Pendleton had it moved to the Pendleton Library, and it was hosted there for several months. It moves again this week or early next week to ANMED. It will be in the North Campus in the atrium of the where the cancer department is. My understanding, it will go from the North Campus to Anderson University this fall, and in early of maybe, I think early 24, it goes to Boulevard Baptist Church. I say all that, I mean, it really has started that dialogue. And one thing, if you, there's a sign that that talks about the lynching, and this was the first side and the back side of that sign. And I think we have an opportunity to place that sign on city property. And I asked David and Andrew what they thought it should be. I had a suggestion, and I don't know, I'll get Andrew to speak on this. He, in regards to, my suggestion was the sidewalk in front of the John Street parking lot.
Perfect.
On one end of it.
Okay.
And it will be somewhere on that sidewalk. I'm not really sure. But I wanted to give the council an update on that. Is that, if y'all had any comments or questions, hopefully I'll be able to.
I have seen that piece of art that you're talking about.
Yep.
It's worth seeing.
Yep. If you hadn't seen it, it's worth seeing.
Certainly is.
Good. So,
Yeah,
anything else?
I can talk about location if you like real
Yeah.
quick.
Please.
I gotta snap back to 2 weeks ago when I sent that email right before I left.
He's using that excuse about having a baby a lot.
Yeah, I got pregnancy brain, right? That's a thing, right, Margaret?
Just being tired.
I'm just being tired, I guess. No, so we did take a look at a couple options to place this plaque. It's an awkward height and size. it's really wide and kind of short, and so we don't want to place it right in the middle of the sidewalk. People have to navigate around it and mess with ADA issues. But we did find a good spot, I think, that would give folks a chance to get around it and to see it, make sure it's front and center. And it is in close proximity to John Street parking lot, right there on that sidewalk on the Main Street side. So we'll finalize that and get that out to you guys once we have a chance to do that.
And I don't have a timeline, but I think it was important for us to find a spot, an appropriate spot. All right, good meeting. We did a lot. We're one more step to a budget for 23-24. Good job. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
First by Mr. Newton,
Second.
second by Mr. Jeff Roberts. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned.